Hi, everybody. My name is Caroline Tremanix. I am the Chief Operations Officer of Ideas for Us, a global environmental nonprofit, and also the Program Director to Fleet Farming, the urban agriculture program of Ideas for Us. And I'm so excited to talk to you today about training youth in the Florida green workforce in urban agriculture, something that's near and dear to my heart. And thank you so much to Florida Climate Week for having me. So Ideas for Us has a mission to develop, fund, and scale solutions to solve the world's most pressing environmental challenges. And with that, we categorize our work into energy, water, food, waste, and ecology projects. We have projects that happen every month all over the world, if not every week. And we have a huge focus here in our hometown of Orlando, Florida, as well as throughout Florida and Tampa Bay and Miami as well. So let's get started with the conversation of employment in America. So this chart shows us that Florida doesn't really do too well when we're talking about job openings as compared to other states that are having a lot of activity and the number of jobs that are becoming open and available. You'll see that Alaska, Louisiana, and Alabama or Georgia, excuse me, are seemingly having a larger job opening rate as of June 2022. And the types of jobs that are gaining a lot of momentum are really in leisure and hospitality, and that can be connected to a little bit of the after effects of the pandemic. We're spending more time at home and we're having more flexible work schedules, and so leisure and hospitality has gone up. As well as professional and business services. I think this can be related to the tech industry as well as healthcare, government, construction, etc. So what also is on the rise is solar and renewable energy jobs. So the transition to renewables is boosting employment opportunities in the US. In the United States Energy and Employment Report 2022, the US Department of Energy reveals green job rises in every energy sector. More than 3 million of 7.8 million jobs in the US energy sector are in areas aligned to America's goal of being carbon neutral by 2050. This means renewable energy jobs in 2021 accounted for around 40% of total energy jobs. So that is a really big win for solar and solar installers, as well as some other new and emerging renewable energy or clean energy jobs in America. So what also is growing is jobs related to urban agriculture. The UN Food and Agriculture Association or organization, UNFAO, reported that urban agriculture is something that is practiced by 800 million people worldwide, over 1/10 of the global population. And this is our beautiful Fleet Farming team on the right-hand side. But you might be asking yourself, how is urban agriculture improving? So this is because a lot of our cities are growing from more rural communities to urbanized. More and more communities in Florida are becoming urbanized, which means that rural refers to any population, housing, or territory not in an urban area. More than 50% of the world's population lives in urban areas, and by 2050, this figure is projected to rise to nearly 70%. Urban areas consume as much as 80% of the energy produced worldwide and account for over 70% of energy-related global greenhouse gases, and both these figures are expected to rise. So this isn't necessarily a good thing, because with more urbanized communities has the problem of having more pollution and more strains on our water supply and food supplies and all of that with growing populations. But it does tell us as a society, and even in Florida, that the land that we do have is so precious. And I know that if you are from the St. Pete or Tampa area, like I am, I'm seeing a lot of land being purchased very fast. And I think that's something that people are experiencing throughout Florida. And so that's why urban agriculture programs are so crucial, because they are really trying to grow as much produce within a small area as they can. So let's talk about Florida's unemployment status. So compared to national rates and averages, Florida is actually improving and doing better than we once were. So let's read a little bit about what that means. Unemployment rate is at 2.7% in Florida, which is down 0.8 percentage below the national rate of 3.5% of unemployment in America. Florida's statewide unemployment rate has been lower than the national rate for 20 consecutive months, and has declined and held steady for 24 consecutive months. Private sector industries gaining the most jobs over the month were, and we know this from the other slide, leisure and hospitality with 19,500 new jobs, professional and business services with 16,400 new jobs, and education and health services with 12,800 new jobs. How does that relate to the green workforce that we have in Florida? And what is it? So green workforce describes a broad grouping of careers that contribute directly to moving society and the built environment toward sustainability. And even beyond sustainability, another term that is being used that I'm hearing and not with nonprofits and environmental groups is regeneration. So by generation, we mean making areas either restored or repaired, and creating the natural environment within our urbanized areas in closed loop systems that create more than sustainability really, but regeneration of our soil, our water, and clean air as well. So this includes jobs and businesses that produce goods or services that benefit the environment or conserve natural resources, and jobs in which workers' duties involved making their establishments' production processes more environmentally friendly or use fewer natural resources. And we're going to get into a couple different jobs and what this actually looks like. So within green careers, there's a lot to look at. If you are a young person watching this, I would really take some of these keywords and just look around your area. Maybe there's some jobs that are new to you or something that may interest you. Everything from energy efficiency to transportation, renewable energy generation, governmental and regulatory administration, agriculture and forestry, environmental protection, and the list goes on and on. And with ideas, we really like to think of this in those focus areas of energy, water, food, waste, and ecology, and kind of breaking down what that means. And these are some jobs that we are seeing in Central Florida, with some connections to other parts of Florida that are also increasing in some of these jobs. So with energy, that's solar sales as a solar sales representative, solar energy consultant, that may include installing solar panels in these renewable energy systems. And in water, we have water treatment operator, aquatic landscaper, and restorationist. By that, we mean creating more of a natural barrier between our waterways and our grasses or our upland areas. The area that touches the water right at the edge is called the littoral zone. And there's a number of growing companies that are hiring restorationists to come and to plant native plants along that barrier that helps to create an aesthetic beauty in a local community for beautification. But it also helps to clean the water, and especially water that flows into our aquifer in our aquifer recharge. And as well as providing habitat for animals and so many different benefits that come from native landscaping as a whole. But then we move into food. So I know ideas for us is hiring in urban agriculture educators, food producers, and hydroponics or aeroponics technicians are also growing jobs in Florida. That's one thing that we've seen a lot is the development and how our greenhouses have been changing and growing. More and more new technologies are emerging. And with these new technologies, employers are really wanting to generate the next, to inspire the next generation of technicians. A number of schools are seeking to provide plant science degrees or certificates to get more of our youth into these jobs. I know one that I know of in my community is Valencia College. They have a plant science department, and they are really trying to get more and more young people interested in growing plants in the world of horticulture. And with that, hydroponics and aeroponics have been shown to really save a lot of water and our emerging technologies that are always growing and changing. But really, when we're looking at the future of food, I personally think that the future of food is going to be more of these vertical grow towers and some of these smart technologies. As much as I love and ground in the land and tending the soil and creating ecosystems and polycultures, no shade to that, but these new technologies are really smart, and more young people are going to have jobs opening up in those kinds of fields. So the next one is waste. There's a number of community composting programs that are starting, whether they're private businesses or with our municipalities, recycling facility technicians as well. And waste in general kind of connects to our products. And there's a number of companies. There's one called Okinos that's based in Miami, where they are using calcium carbonate to replace plastic in a lot of our everyday products. So companies like that are also looking for more of our younger generations to get interested to have lifelong careers in reducing plastics globally. And then the last one is ecology. So this is native landscapers, plant nursery managers, people who are out there planting trees and helping to re-landscape and beautify our urban spaces, whether it's a city-owned park, part of a parks department, or a local business or company. More and more landscapers are considering the fact that it doesn't have to just look like mowing. It can look like regeneration in terms of native landscaping or horticultural applications as well. So here's some exact examples of everything that I'm talking about. So for instance, Ideas for Us has been able to employ staff and mainly youth in our early 20s to be able to grow plants in the littoral zones, as I mentioned before. So you see that beautiful water body, and the land above it is just grass. And so between that, we really need natives and shrubbery to collect any runoff, to filter it. And when it gets into our water bodies, it'll be in a better place than just having grass into our water bodies to help manage that wastewater. And these plants can be native, flowering, they can have pollinators, they can help to clean the water, and they can be really aesthetically pleasing. This is an opportunity that we were able to do because of a grant, because we're a nonprofit. We worked with our local municipality, Orange County, part of a Sustainables community grant to improve the neighborhood, and a beautification project that also benefits the environment. Other things that we've been able to do is to lead community waste cleanups. More and more corporate businesses are being inspired and empowered to organize cleanups in their community. So we were able to engage a lot of young people in conversations about our environment, about climate change, about where we see the future of agriculture, and in all of those different environmental conversations through a community event where we are paying staff to be able to lead this, but also just getting a lot of young people involved and having places for conversation. If I didn't have a group of people to talk to when I was first questioning if horticulture is something that I wanted to explore as a career, then I don't know if I would have done it, because I just didn't know. And I think that having that communication is really important. And then the next thing is planting fruit trees. One of the best things that I think that we can do is providing a plant that has ecological benefits, meaning that it's helping local birds, it's helping local animals, it's providing shade in areas that are really hot, that are experiencing like the heat island effect, creating oxygen and shade. There's just so many benefits of trees. And having fruit trees has an added benefit because it can also help people, and it can also be a part of our local food systems. Trees and orchards can be easily taken care of compared to an annual garden or a vegetable garden of plants that are, needing to be hand watered every day. Some of these trees, once established, they create a whole microclimate in their little area, and a whole little ecosystem that lives on their leaves or in the soil around them. And so we were able to do this because of a number of corporate partners who wanted to see young people getting, all of these really important centers of community opportunities to have fruit trees in their community. And this one pictured is with One Heart, if you've ever heard of that, One Heart for women and children. It's an amazing program to uplift women who are in need. So let's talk more about youth-focused green workforce training. Youth are increasingly more and more concerned about the environment. I think that that's a no-brainer because of what we've seen with the climate strikes and the climate movement. The nonprofit Service Year Alliance polled hundreds of 18 to 28-year-olds in January of 2022 and found a 91% indicated some level of concern about climate change, but 2/3 said they were unsure about what they could personally do to have an impact. And people like this gentleman on the right-hand side, a 27-year-old wind turbine technician with NextEra Energy, shared his story about how he learned about the wind energy job position and how he got inspired. And I think that, our young people, and I consider myself one of them, we really want to do something different. We want to do something that's inspiring. We want to do something that's going to change the world. And that's why I love so much working for a nonprofit, that I'm able to fundraise for projects where I know that I'm making an impact. But we're seeing more and more opportunities in the corporate world and in, local businesses and groups that really want to make a difference, whether it's in the products and services that they're creating or the buildings. A really good example of this is the Green Energy Buildings lead certification building network, and getting more people who are interested in that, and kind of taking them the more sustainable route to talk about energy efficiency and how important it is for our big buildings within a city to be conscious about water and conscious about energy. And there are just so many inspiring conversations about innovation related to that. And green jobs may be less expensive to obtain. So I was really amazed by this. Raj Daniels, who is the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Sustainability Initiatives for Nexus PMG, an engineering firm in the renewable sector, said good paying green jobs can be obtained with less expensive education than it is required for other fields. The average debt for a bachelor's exceeds $25,000, he noted, more than double the cost to become a certified wind turbine technician. So that's kind of a really inspiring thing to think about, is that why don't we encourage more of our tradesmen and tradespersonship and to have shorter pathways between people and their careers? And I really saw that in my plant science degree that I have from Valencia, and they had 4 certificates that we got along the way before we got our degree. And it also was super affordable because it was with a community college. And right out of the gate, I was able to get a job with fleet farming as an urban agriculturalist. But other people, like my brother, who also took the program, was immediately able to get a job in a greenhouse. And I know so many people too, because these types of careers are hiring. They're looking for more people to grow food, or to generate ornamental plants or native plants in a nursery. And I think that there's a more growing need out there. And it's also consumer led, right? It's what we spend our money on, what we see as valuable. Do we see having a Florida native landscape with local food valuable? And I would like to think that more and more people are having this trend towards things being more natural, more organic, more simple, and so that those kinds of consumer trends leads to what our businesses are able to generate in terms of jobs for our youth and for our workforce. So we mentioned from the earlier slide climate change. So I just want to quickly touch on climate change really quick for those who are unaware of the status of things. Climate change is a common threat devastating impacts on food availability, livelihoods, and human health as the world experiences an increasingly severe climate impacts on agricultural production. Many of our food systems are being pushed to a breaking point. In short, climate change is putting food production at risk. And there's so many different factors that fight a farmer, right? You could be fighting nature by having a monoculture or one crop being grown over sometimes thousands of acres. And because of that, because you're going against nature, you're going to have to use pesticides and fertilizers and all these chemicals. And there's also other things happening that are more political, like small farmers who are having their land bought by corporate farmers who are not letting them raise crops as they typically were because of cross contamination of seeds and pollination. So there's so many things going on about that. Vandana Shiva has a great commentary on that, on what's going on in India. But let's read a little bit more. Yield growth for wheat, maize, and other crops have been declining in many countries due to extreme heat, severe weather, and droughts. By some estimates, in the absence of effective adaptation, global fields could decline by up to 30% by 2050. Countries that are already grappling with conflict, pollution, deforestation, and other challenges are likely to suffer the brunt of these impacts. The 2 billion people already without access to sufficient food, including smallholder farmers and other people living in poverty, will be hit the hardest. And that's really why I care about urban agriculture. I care about local food systems. I care about local supply chains and local farmers markets, because it's really, really important for cities and communities to not have a reliance outside. If Orlando was cut off by all imports, say because of a hurricane or because of any natural event, we would only have less than 30 days of our own food supply to survive. Whereas we have so much land that is underutilized as lawn space or as rooftops, etc., in a growing urbanized community. I think that we just have to have more of a responsibility and more of a mindset that we have to grow food for our people. And that is a job that's always going to be growing. It's always going to be looking for innovation. It's always going to be looking for people to get hired in growing food. That is something that that's going to sustain. If we're going to have more of a resiliency, which cities are starting to have positions all around resiliency. And with that comes resiliency of our food supply. So already, despite decades of global commitment, hunger and food insecurity persists at staggering rates. According to the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report, nearly 750 million people experienced severe food insecurity in 2019, and the number of undernourished or food insecure people is rising. And so that's just really, really sad to hear, right? Because we feel called to help people who are either not able to grow crops in their area, or there's no urban agriculture or agricultural operations happening that makes it accessible, or maybe that it's an area that is really dependent on imports and everybody has to buy these products and they can't be involved with the food system. So it's definitely a really large spectrum that is there's a lot to talk about on it, but it's kind of good to understand just how important food is and how precious it is, and to appreciate it and to promote it more in communities where we can. And food has a big impact on our environment. More than a third of global greenhouse gas emissions comes from production, distribution, and consumption of food. And there's so much more information on this if you want to get into it, on what kind of things in our food system are really having the hardest effect on our environment and our forests. And there's just so much to this. So with ideas for us in fleet farming, these are the kind of the core things that we were discussing, and how do we get more youth involved in our food systems? We really had to take a step back and ask ourselves, why? Why are we looking for more youth in our urban agriculture systems? Number one is monocultures. So monocultures are typically what our industrialized food system is reliant on. And like I said earlier, it goes against all the rules of nature. So that means that we have to have a lot of inputs to be able to get some sort of output, including pesticide pollution and insecticides, fertilizers, Roundup ready crops, and these giant tractors that are harvesting with gasoline and it's a really costly and kind of toxic system that we're a part of. But, that's at no fault to the consumer in a way, because we're only accessible to a certain amount of food. Whether we have access to a local farmers market, which is awesome, and supporting local food that way, that's the best, right? Or from a local farm stand. But sometimes when we're in the store, it really is in front of us as it's either conventional, which is monoculture typically, or it is organic, which can be sometimes double or triple the cost of conventional. So when you talk about communities that don't have a lot of funds, it really isn't an option. So that's why we want to see more food grown in our communities, so we can have more accessibility for all people to have local healthy food. And with that, we want to have a workforce that is happy and that is supported and that have their own rights that are being respected. And sometimes in our industrialized food system, we don't see that. We don't have accountability for how the workers were treated in our Guatemalan farms that we're importing from, or our Mexican farms, or wherever our food is coming in from. There needs to be more of an understanding and a ethics amongst import and export of how was this food created? How am I allowed to buy a conventional tomato at the store for $1? Who does that hurt? And how can we change that? Because we want to change that. I know that a lot of people want to see people being happy within their lives and supported. And, even in Florida, there's actually a great book. It's called Tomato Land. And it talks about tomato farmers in Florida that were losing their own rights. And it was there's a long story with that, but we want to see farmers be supported. And then, whereas we have 40 million acres of lawn in America, that is, to me, a big missed opportunity for us to have food, to have local food production, to have fruit orchards, to kind of think about our spaces as assets, community assets that we can have and we can grow and we can nurture. Not only when we can grow food in polycultures and in dynamic systems that are much like an ecosystem with diversity, we can have diversity and health in our soil, which produces plants that create oxygen and clean air. So it's all circled around each other. And when we have really healthy food for our people, we feel better, right? And we're healthier and we're able to do more and feel more. And it's really, really important. So it's not just lawns, it's what it could be. And kind of the whole point of this presentation is in this last point, which is the average age of the American farmer is 58 years old. That to me is really scary and sad, because a lot of these generational farming farmers are not having their sons and daughters and nephews and nieces get into the business. They're instead getting a tech job or getting a career in health or whatever it may be. And that's at no disrespect to the jobs that they're choosing, but that means to me that our workforce that is leading this is getting older. They're getting they're aging out of their own careers. So we need to be inspiring the next generation of urban farmers now to be inspired and excited and to rally around local food and plants and ecology in a connected sense together, because we know that our environment and our local food systems are one. The way that we affect our food systems affects our environment, and the type of environments we have produces a different type of food supply. So having our youth that are coming out of college or that are trying to change careers or even coming out of high school, which I'll get to, we want to get them in this as soon as possible. So let's talk about youth training in urban agriculture. So urban agriculture, urban farming, urban gardening is the practice of cultivating, processing, and distributing food in or around urban areas. Urban agriculture is also the term used for animal husbandry, aquaculture, urban beekeeping, and horticulture, which is what I really love. Food security refers to the measure of availability of food and individual's ability to access it. So just because Publix is a 10-minute drive from you doesn't mean that it's accessible to people without a car or people who are disabled. So having more food in urbanized spaces like lawns help us to have more of that food accessible. This is a great example on the right-hand side. This is a picture of one of our farms in the Audubon Park community in Central Florida. And this is outside of one of our homeowners who actually was a farmer. He was a farmer and his specialty was tomatoes, and he gives us so much education on how to grow tomatoes. And he is able to easily access, he's a little bit of an elderly gentleman, and he's able to just come outside and harvest produce from his own farm. And what if we lived in a world where more food was accessible like that? Or maybe if you didn't want to have volunteers coming to your house all the time, maybe you could just have fruit trees in your front yard, and we'd come maybe a couple times a year to prune the tree, maybe to mulch, to check on the irrigation, but to harvest produce and to give you baskets of produce. This is the world that we're trying to create together at Fleet Farming. And let's talk about food sovereignty. What is that? So it's the right of people to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced through ecologically sound and sustainable methods, and their right to define their own food and agriculture systems. So this means that working with communities, with community members being the ones to decide what they want to grow, what do they like, what's important to them. So that's, for instance, we have a farm where this person, they really prefer to have tea. That was something that is culturally sensitive, important to them. And so we decided to create a little tea farm with different types of teas that they would enjoy and consume. And the permaculture movement is really, really great for this. There's so many permaculture plants for Florida. Oh my goodness. If you are into growing or you want to get into growing, please look up a local permaculture group in your area. We can grow cassava and banana and yucca and plantains and ginger and turmeric. And there's just so many plants out there that could be benefiting us internally and externally in creating the ecosystem of food. So what are the benefits of urban agriculture? An increase in vegetation cover. So this can be related to even aquifer recharge. So having more green spaces helps to filter water. It also helps to reduce the heat island effect in urban areas, because that green is helping instead of like concrete. The cultivation of soil for carbon sequestration, so that's related to climate change and improving our emissions as well. It can reduce flooding. Having those networks of roots in the soil and the mycelium networks helps to stabilize it. And so then when water is introduced, there's something to hold it together. Reducing transportation costs to the environment, increase food security and accessibility, provide space for community engagement. It's just beautiful spaces where you can come out and you could talk to your neighbors, and it promotes biodiversity. So just think about if your community had an urban farm led by youth, where you could come out and you can get involved and you could take home some plant starts or maybe donate some seeds. It just is a space for community and a space for diversity and a space for healthy lifestyles. And so let's talk about some other options in urban agriculture. It doesn't have to just be in-ground rows. It can be square foot gardening, which is used typically with raised beds. It can be permaculture, which I mentioned earlier, which is a set of design principles centered around whole systems thinking. It can be hydroponics or aeroponics, which basically means whether the roots of the plant is suspended in the air with a water nutrient solution pouring on it, or if it's suspended in the water, which is hydroponics. These systems, like I said, are the growing technologies that are going to be hiring more and more people as we start to have a focus on food resiliency. And aquaponics as well, having fish be in shellfish and different types of aquatic animals be in this process, creating fertilizer in these closed loop systems. They're creating the fertilizer that creates the plants are being fed to the fish, and on and on and on until the fish produce well over their capacity of the tank, and then they are harvested for human consumption. And so these types of systems are really beneficial to people and the environment. So if you're interested, I'll add a couple more. So floriculture, having a focus just on growing flowers, whether it's cut flowers for weddings, which is a great local business to start, or if it's something that has to do with more research-based, or even art and design, drying the flowers, using that for an art, like making, picture frames with pressed flowers or whatever it may be. And then pomology. And by that, I mean focusing on fruit trees and having that be your thing, having you creating fruit orchards and learning about how to take care of trees in arboriculture related to fruit is a whole different path to go down as well. So let's look at some options for youth engagement. We have agriculture-focused school projects, which is great. For any teachers hearing this right now, this is a great first step into getting students more involved with food systems, whether it's science or math or history. There's something with plants throughout. Nature and the environment is within everything that we do. And so it can be a really great segue into talking about other types of careers and even field trips. So some of the high school programs that we run, we make sure to have field trips to different greenhouses and botanical gardens to, have students be introduced to the idea of, hey, this is what you could maybe do as a career. Also community and school gardens. Ideas for us in Fleet Farming: create school gardens and school community gardens as well. If you're interested in having us work with you for a grant or helping to figure out fundraising, we'd love to do that. So please reach out to us. But having that in a community is great to introduce youth to the idea of growing food too. I will add a botanical garden is even an even better option. That's how I got into this. Volunteering in urban agriculture. So Fleet Farming is one of the only urban agriculture programs that's a nonprofit. So you can come out and volunteer with us, but all local farms, almost all local farms would love to have a volunteer come out. So maybe research some urban farmers in your area and reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to come in for a work day if you're looking for some hands-on, engagement. Internships and apprenticeships. So those are different things. Internships are usually unpaid, and apprenticeships are more in direct line to being hired. Almost 100% of our own staff was either an intern or trained to be an apprentice before they got hired with us as a team member. So these can be paid or towards school credit. Entry-level urban agricultural jobs. So that's working on a local farm. I know when I was looking for this job, or I was looking for a job, I reached out to Fleet Farming and I said, hey, I know you don't have anything open right now, but I'm your girl. I am perfect for this job. I'm learning. I would love to learn more with you guys. I'm a fast learner, AKA I didn't really have that much experience, but just reaching out is sometimes the best thing to do. I recently read a study and it was talking about the percentage, actually a high percentage of women don't even reach out to an employer if they think that they may not be best for they might not have the requirements for the job. To me, I think that your tenacity and your eagerness, it goes a long way. And going out of your way to reach out to an employer and to introduce yourself is a really great way that you can hopefully get a job with them. And then we go into higher educational programs. Like I have a degree in horticulture. I know friends who have a degree in biology and etc. And when you're in those programs, you might be wondering, like, should I even go into these programs? And I will say there is a benefit. The benefit is that you are with a community of people who are interested in the same things. And it's a whole field with contacts. And I've worked with so many different teachers and professors that I've had professionally that I met and I created relationships with when I was in school. And so these are usually industry leaders too. One of my favorite people in the world, Dr. Javier Garces from Valencia College, he was a really big mentor to me. And he, explained a lot about different career options and gave a lot of field trips to people in our program to be able to see what is the thing that you care most about. So I would say that higher education definitely has its perks. And if you want to be a professor later, you would have to get a master's degree. So if that's something that you want to do, I would definitely look into that as an option for you. And then there's workaways. Really, what I mean by this is woofing and working on farms, whether it's domestically or abroad, where you can hopefully live, work, and eat at a different farm, and then learn more hands-on and have real world experiences in the field. And there's so many scholarships on that. I know someone who got to go to Italy because there was a workaway option there. Yeah, look into it. There's opportunities everywhere. So let's talk about fleet farming just as a case study. So this is our team, and fleet farming is an urban agriculture program. We turn front and back lawns into farms in residential neighborhoods. And we also have different parts of our program, and we are funded by different groups like Bolo Foundation and Sprouts Healthy Communities and other partners that we'll get into more specifically to be able to do the work that we do and to hire a staff and to have a really big impact locally in different areas, from educating people on how to grow food to getting involved in local food systems and food donation programs. So fleet farming has that part, which is lawns to farms, to market, to CSA, to donations. We have an edible landscaping service. So we are a nonprofit, but this can be a really great model for people who wanted to start their own businesses, because less than 1% of all landscaping companies offer anything that's edible or anything that's native. So if you wanted to make a difference in your area and start your own business, I would encourage you to either work with a local landscaper and to say, hey, I have a new service for you. I can help people to grow food, or to start your own business, or to join a group that's already doing this. And then education too. This is growing more and more as people want to learn how to grow food at home, how to grow food for their community garden, how to grow food for their job. And education is a whole big part of that too, especially with schools and younger people. And this just shows where our food goes. Our food goes to the homeowner as a sharecropping model. It goes to a CSA and a SAP certified farmers market, and through to local food banks when we have an excess for donations. And that's usually in season, so fall to winter to spring. So localized food systems can reduce harmful agricultural practices. It can improve access to healthy lifestyles, and it can keep our dollars local. And there's a lot of reasons why we see lawns as an opportunity for urban agriculture, because they use 30 to 60% of a city's fresh water, because they're heavy in nitrogen and phosphorus that can contaminate our waterways, because they require a lot of toxic chemicals. The list goes on and on. And so we can turn this into this, a productive polyculture of different types of plants growing in companion plants or in guilds that are supportive, more than having a monoculture, which lawns really are a monoculture. And we really started as a nonprofit through a couple key donations and through volunteers and people who are donating their land. And we still get people who are interested in donating their land. And we're trying to start some more fruit orchards right now. So we also want to inspire a lifelong love of food and love of growing. And that is really key in the Florida green workforce and urban agriculture, is having this as an option. How do you have this as an option? You need to plant the seed when they're young, right? So that can start anywhere from preschool, where we have preschool programs at West Lakes that we're leading right now in Orlando. But then starting at the elementary level and working our way up to high school. So this is an example. We're at the ACE K through 8 school, funded by Bolo Foundation. Thank you, Bolo. And the garden was supported by Keep Orlando Beautiful. And so these local partners really came together to say, this is how we start this system, right? These kids will be able to grow their own food and bring home produce to their family and be introduced to new types of crops and have fun. And from there, we have created over 38 school gardens. So we are so happy about that. Some schools, they just need help getting started and having us bring volunteers together to build their garden. And then other schools, we have ongoing programs like at ACE and at some of our high schools, where we are there every week, if not twice a week. And so this is something that more and more nonprofits and corporate partners, they want to rally around this. They want to see this. We want to see 100% of schools in our county, which is Orange County, have community and school garden programs, because there's just so much to it. Seeing something grow from nothing and being able to eat it and enjoy it. There's so many life lessons in a garden. And with that, what's really, really important is asking the question of how do we create a pathway of accessibility from high school to a job and to the workforce or to higher education. And that really is getting into our high schools and, allowing the students to share their own thoughts and opinions and dreams and visions for what their school garden could look like, or what careers they're interested in. And so thanks to some of our partners, Volo Foundation, Energy Foundation, OCBS Foundation, we're able to have 2 high school programs that we're so excited to be leading, that we've been working with for a couple of years now. And through their school gardens on site, they are leading farmers markets on campus, and exploring different careers in agriculture and horticulture and animal husbandry and floriculture and etc. Anything that they're interested in, we're there to support them and to give them the tools and everything that they need to be able to feel supported and feel like they can try something new and learn something new. And this has been such an important conversation and inspiration to the Florida green workforce and urban agriculture at large. Because if we can have a pathway for students to be able to get a job right out of high school, in something that they are interested in and that they care about, that's really everything. And I think that more and more businesses will start to think about high schools as a really great place to attract their next generation of workforce. So these are some pictures of our gardens. They've developed over the years, and they are growing. We have so many different projects planned for them. We have Jones High School and Evans High School, both in areas that have just a great population of students who are excited to get involved. And there's just so much ahead of us. We have greenhouses, shade houses, we're doing crop planning, and right now is the time to grow in Florida. So we are so excited, and the students are too. So some upcoming student-led projects that we have, we are introducing more plant propagation opportunities for students to learn how hands-on how to propagate plants from cuttings, from seeds, grafting, to grow crops like strawberries and different greens, and any type of crop that they're interested in, to really have a place to test things out, whether it's in their horticulture class in high school, or their agriculture class in high school, or if it's in an after-school garden club or an FFA or Future Farmers of America club. And with that, one of our new educators is versed in the culinary arts. So he's having students have more opportunities to cook and to pickle and to try things out, which is a whole other part of food that we don't typically connect so well, is the application of how we can cook this food and prepare this food, and how we can grow it together, and how that affects the environment. And so with that, we're organizing field trips for these students to either virtually or in person go to see different nurseries and greenhouses and farms and employers and beekeepers, that give them the opportunity to see what they're interested in. And also we're having scholarship funds for students who can think up green eco businesses, have their projects funded. And so we can see some green entrepreneurship in our high schools as well. So stay tuned for all of that. So what does the future of green jobs in Florida look like? So one of the things that Ideas for Us is doing is we have just been awarded a state appropriation bill from the state of Florida. That is the Florida Green Jobs youth initiative. And so through this initiative, we will be having opportunities for youth in Orlando, Tampa Bay, and Miami to have hands-on training and job opportunities related to STEM workforce training, future technologies related to solar and renewable energy, electric vehicles, and remote ecosystem monitoring, as well as in urban agriculture and edible food production trainings, farmers market readiness trainings, edible landscapes entrepreneurships, and aquaculture. So in aquaculture and hydroponic food production, urban fish and shellfish production trainings. And so we're going to be having a number of events. The one I'm really excited for is our solar workforce training program, where we're able to, for free, have an opportunity for people to come and to learn about how to get into the solar industry, the growing, beautiful, bright solar industry. And so we'll be having trainings in Florida in those areas for that. As well as opportunities to get involved hands-on in creating, installing solar panels with a mock roof. So some really exciting things. And I know a number of partners too that I can't speak for, but they have a lot of different opportunities, from planting seagrasses to restoration efforts, where they're looking for young people to get involved too. And with that, thank you so much for having me. There's so many different ways that people can get involved with the green workforce development. In our eyes, whether in water, waste, ecology, food, or energy, there's so much to each different focus area or sector that is really opening and changing and growing and innovating. And employers and nonprofits and leaders are really looking towards the youth to be able to help us to innovate and to help us dream of what's next for Florida and the Florida Green Workforce Network. With that, we invite you to join our Florida Green Workforce group on Facebook, hosted by Ideas for Us. So this is a place where you can share any eco jobs that you find, and we can share eco jobs that we find, and we can share this in an open group and have conversations about what's available, what's growing, what is an idea that you want to help grow. And so if you want to search on Facebook, the Florida Green Workforce Network, or you can visit us through this link. We would love to have you join us and continue conversations online. So I'll leave you with a quote from one of my heroes, which is Wangari Maathai. We owe it to ourselves and to the next generation to conserve the environment so that we can bequeath our children a more sustainable world that benefits us all. And I know that myself in the Florida Green Workforce right now, I feel so fulfilled and I feel inspired and excited. And I'm just excited also to be able to be in a system where we're thinking about the next generation and we're thinking about the children. So thank you so much for your interest in this. And I know that people who are watching this are already invested and are already interested. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you create as well. So thank you so much for having me. We invite you to come to all of our events in person, online, wherever it is. Please, please, please check out our events. We have open volunteering opportunities to plant fruit trees, to plant school gardens, to construct bird platforms, to create sustainability care kits for women, to do waste cleanups. So come out and join us. We have an Orlando branch, a Tampa branch, and we're opening a Miami branch as well. So check us out on social media and donate. Please, please donate if you see value in what we do and all the messages that we're trying to get across. And the same thing for fleet farming. If you want to come and farm with us, we have something called a swarm ride, which is a farming bike ride in our city. And we'd love for you to come out and join us. So fleetfarming.org/events. Follow us on social media. We have we share information on all of our events and just videos of what happens on the farms every day. So follow us at Fleet Farming. And if you see value in the urban agriculture side of what we do, please donate at our website. So thank you so much again for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you about all of this. I feel rallied and inspired. I hope you do too. Have a great rest of your time at Florida Climate Week, and I will see you next year. Bye.